Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready.
This time, we're exploring the brilliance of Saadi of Shiraz. We've got a goldmine of insights to draw from.
Yeah, 50 conversations between these Iranian philosophers, Dr. Dinani and Dr. Larijani.
A treasure trove, for sure. And just a heads up, this is a translation, so, some of the nuances might get a little lost in the process.
That's true, but I think the heart of it, the wisdom, that still shines through.
Absolutely. Okay, so we're diving into the Gulistan today, right at the very beginning. Every time I read those opening lines, it's like this wave of nostalgia washes over me.
Really? Like what?
Like going back to childhood, those lessons you learned early on that stick with you.
I can see that. It's funny you should say that because Dr. Dinani talks about this timeless quality in Saadi's language. Like, even centuries later, it still feels so fresh, so relevant. It really makes you wonder what gives language that kind of power.
It's incredible, right? It's almost like his work just transcends time and space.
And Dr. Dinani really emphasizes how language is this unique human thing. It's not just about communicating information, it's something more, something that sets us apart on an evolutionary level even.
Absolutely.
He uses this example of parrots. Parrots can mimic sounds amazingly, but they don't have that deep meaning-making ability that we have as humans.
Right.
And Dr. Dinani points out this interesting paradox. We have a limited set of sounds, letters, but with those, we create this infinite realm of expression. He calls it the finite to infinite problem.
Wow, yeah, that's a great way to put it. So are we just wired differently, or is there something even deeper going on there?
Well, Dr. Dinani asks this really thought-provoking question. He wonders, does the power of language point towards something beyond us, maybe a divine source?
That's interesting.
He doesn't try to force that as the answer, but it's definitely an idea that gets you thinking, right? Especially considering how we create meaning through words.
No, for sure. And it's amazing to think that even the most basic building blocks of language, like letters, the alphabet, can lead to these deep philosophical conversations.
Exactly.
And then you have someone like Saadi, a true master of language, weaving these profound truths into captivating stories and poems.
Yeah, and speaking of profound truths, I think it's time we delve into that opening line of the Gulistan you mentioned earlier.
Okay, let's do it.
So it goes, "Give thanks to God Almighty, whose obedience is the cause of nearness, and whose gratitude increases his bounty." Right from the start, Saadi sets up this relationship with God that's all about indebtedness and gratitude. There's no sense of entitlement.
Yeah, you're right. And it's fascinating how Saadi links obedience with closeness to God. Do you think true gratitude is even possible without understanding our place in the universe in relation to something bigger than ourselves?
That's a great question.
What do you think?
Well, Dr. Dinani really dives into this, and he says Saadi's use of the word tat, which means obedience, is really about recognizing God's greatness. It's about aligning ourselves with a higher purpose. That's where true worship comes from, he says.
So it's not about blindly submitting. It's about understanding and aligning ourselves with a larger truth.
That's exactly it. And it's this understanding that leads to genuine gratitude, or shukr, as Saadi calls it. Dr. Dinani emphasizes that gratitude is more than just a feeling, it's an intellectual act.
So like just saying thank you isn't enough.
Right, exactly. It has to come from a deeper understanding of both the gift and the giver.
I remember him telling this story, I think it was about a Sufi master, who said true servants, they even give thanks when God withholds, because they realize they don't possess anything of their own to begin with. That's a pretty powerful idea, right?
Yeah, very powerful. And, it connects with this concept of non-attachment that you find in so many spiritual traditions.
It's like recognizing that everything we have is a gift, ultimately.
Exactly. And recognizing that understanding is what paves the way for genuine gratitude.
And then Saadi takes this complex idea, and in the very next line, he brings it down to earth. He says, every breath we take is life-sustaining, and when it goes forth, it gladdens the spirit. He turns something as simple as breathing into this profound lesson.
That's Saadi for you. He has this incredible way of weaving layers of meaning into things we often take for granted. He reminds us that even in breathing, there's this duality of blessings.
It's true.
We inhale and we get this life-giving air, and then we exhale and we release what we no longer need. It's like this subtle reminder to appreciate the most basic elements of our existence.
Yeah, it makes you think about how often we do take breathing for granted, especially in today's world. Everything's so fast-paced and distracting. It's easy to forget about this simple act that literally keeps us alive.
And it really is a powerful thing, to just bring your awareness to your breath. It's like Saadi is encouraging us to be more present, to appreciate those everyday miracles that we often miss.
He does this amazing thing where he starts with these grand concepts, right? God, obedience, gratitude. But then he grounds it all in something as simple and tangible as our breath. It's such a masterful use of language.
Oh, absolutely. And Dr. Dinani, he really dives into that, the sheer genius of Saadi. He's fascinated by how these words have retained their power for centuries.
It's true. It makes you wonder, what is it about language that's so captivating, so enduring? What's the secret sauce?
Well, Dr. Dinani, he argues that language is unlike anything else in the natural world. It's not just a tool, for communication. It's like a window into the human soul, a reflection of our capacity for thought and creativity for connection.
He even goes so far as to suggest that language might have a divine origin, like it points to something beyond our material existence.
Right, and he's not saying it's dogma or anything, but rather that it's a logical conclusion if you really consider how unique language is. He points out that even the most basic elements of language, like letters, sounds, they can lead us to profound philosophical questions.
It's like you start with a simple seed, and it blossoms into this whole garden of ideas and connections.
That's a great analogy. And Saadi, he was a master gardener of language, using his words to inspire, to challenge, to transform.
But we can't forget that story about the king and the tongue, right? That's a pretty stark reminder that language can be used for both good and evil.
Absolutely. The power of words to hurt, to incite hatred, it's just as potent as their power to heal and uplift. It's a timeless truth.
So how do we navigate that duality? How do we make sure we're using language wisely, responsibly?
Well, Dr. Dinani suggests it starts with awareness, being mindful of the impact our words have on ourselves and on others.
So it's about developing that inner compass, to be able to discern truth from falsehood, to see the real intention behind the words we use and the words we hear.
Exactly. We have to move beyond just the surface level and try to understand the deeper meanings, the motivations behind our communication.
And that brings us back to those opening lines from Saadi, right? That call to gratitude, to recognizing we're indebted to something greater than ourselves. It's not just a religious idea. It's like a foundation for ethical communication.
I think that's a really insightful point. It's about approaching language with humility, with a sense of responsibility, knowing that our words can create and they can destroy.
And Saadi understood this. He used his mastery of language to awaken us to the beauty and complexity of the world, to inspire us to live more meaningful lives.
He challenged us to examine our assumptions, to question our beliefs, to look deeper. And he did it with grace, with wit, and with a profound understanding of the human heart. It's no wonder his work still resonates with us today.
So as we continue to explore Saadi's Gulistan, what are some key takeaways that we can apply to our own lives?
Well, Dr. Dinani, he really emphasizes this idea of cultivating what he calls a grateful heart. He says true gratitude, it's more than just a feeling. It's a way of seeing the world, a way of appreciating the abundance that surrounds us, even when things are tough.
It's like we're actively choosing to shift our perspective. Instead of focusing on what we lack, we train ourselves to notice and appreciate what we have.
Exactly. And that shift, it has this ripple effect. It affects our own well-being, how we interact with others. When we approach the world with a grateful heart, we're naturally more inclined to be kind, compassionate, understanding.
It's like that saying, what you appreciate, appreciates. You cultivate gratitude, and it opens you up to receive even more blessings.
I love that. And that leads to another key takeaway from Saadi, the transformative power of language. As we've been discussing, it can inspire, it can heal, it can connect, but it can also harm, divide, and cause suffering.
So the question is, how do we harness this power of language for good? How do we use our words to create a more beautiful, compassionate world?
Dr. Dinani has some good thoughts on that, actually. He suggests we start by becoming more aware of the impact of our words,
Oh, I see. So like taking a moment to really think before we speak, weighing the consequences of what we're about to say.
Yeah, exactly. And he also emphasizes speaking from the heart, being sincere and authentic. Like Saadi himself, his words have resonated for centuries because they were grounded in his own experience and his understanding of what it means to be human.
So it's not just about what we say, but how we say it. Aligning our words with our hearts, speaking from a place of truth and compassion.
Yeah, I like that. That's a beautiful way to put it. And lastly, Dr. Dinani reminds us about the importance of listening.
Listening. How does that tie into the power of language?
Well, he says that real communication, it's a two-way street. It involves both speaking and listening. He says we need to really cultivate the ability to listen to other perspectives, to try and understand them, even when we don't agree.
So it's about creating a space for genuine dialogue, for
Yeah.
empathy, for connection.
Precisely. That ability to really listen, to connect on a heart level, it's essential if we want to build understanding and create a more harmonious world.
It seems like Saadi's wisdom goes way beyond poetry and literature. It's like a guide for navigating relationships, for building a more just and compassionate society.
And that's exactly why his work is still so relevant, even after all these centuries. He speaks to something universal, something timeless within us.
Saadi's Gulistan is often called a garden of wisdom. And I think today, as we've explored its depths, we've really unearthed some gems that can enrich our lives and inspire us to live with more meaning and connection. So before we wrap up, is there one key message you hope our listeners will take away from our deep dive today?
I think Dr. Dinani leaves us with a very powerful reminder. He says that the capacity for gratitude, it lives within each of us. It's not something we have to earn or achieve. It's a quality we can cultivate if we make the effort.
It's a choice we can make every single day. And that choice has the power to transform our lives, our relationships, and ultimately the world around us.
Beautifully said. Saadi's Gulistan is an invitation to embark on this journey of transformation, to awaken to the beauty and wonder that's all around us, and to live lives filled with gratitude, meaning, and purpose.
That's a wonderful thought to end on. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive into the wisdom of Saadi. Until next time, may you find joy in the simple things, beauty in the unexpected, and gratitude in every breath you take.